Many psychologists today debate the argument of nature versus nurture. They consider each side of the debate and try to decide whether the way a person is comes from the environment they were raised in or if they were born to be that way. The nurture side of the debate makes more sense. Children are born into this world as a blank slate, which is one of the theories about this topic. How they are brought up and the morals they are taught will affect the type of person they turn out to be. The three ways that nurturing affects more than nature is the toll that nurturing takes on the mental state of a child, the scientific research and experiments that have been conducted, and also the environmental impact around the child growing up. Nature versus nurture is a well-discussed, thought-out debate in the psychological world, and nurturing is what makes more sense. When it comes to nurturing, it is sure to have an impact on the mental state of a child. Some children are born with illnesses, but the nurturing environment is what really molds them and shapes them to who they're supposed to be. For instance, a man named James Fallon, who is a neuroscientist, discovered that he has the brain of a psychopath. But he believes the nurturing environment that he was raised in prevented him from taking the traits of a psychopath. This is kind of similar to people who have the gene for certain addictions. Environmental aspects, such as the habits of parents, friends, or a partner, can be essential in whether the development of an addiction occurs. Take alcoholism for an example. This trait can be passed down to a child through genetics, but depending on the environment and the people around him or her, will affect whether the addiction is developed or not. The University of Liverpool has recently discovered that while a family history of mental health problems was the second strongest predictor of mental illness, that the very strongest was indeed the life events and experiences that the person has. There are many experiments and lots of research put into nurturing. John B. Watson is one of the most well-known psychologists to perform experiments on environmental learning. He said he could train a baby out of 12 infants to become any type of specialist that he chooses. He explains that no matter what genetic background that a child comes from, he can form it to become what he wants. He wrote a lot about children and how important nurturing a child is. Another psychologist named John Locke gives us the idea of children being born as a blank slate. He explains that humans are born with a completely blank, empty mind, having zero knowledge, which gives the idea that the nurturing environment is what really shapes a child. Next, we discussed the true environmental impact that nurturing has on a child. Children's experiences in the environment affect all aspects of their being to the health of their bodies and minds. The environment varies for different areas of development. The environment may play a bigger role in development when environmental conditions are more extreme than moderate conditions. When a child grows up with the right amount of nutrition, love, and a stable home life, they can develop into a better person. On the contrary, if a child grows up in a home where the parents aren't very attentive, do drugs, and drink alcohol, they set a bad example for the child, and the child will more than likely have a lack of ambition and want to end up the same. Seeing as nature versus nurture is such a large debate, the ideas that lean towards the nurture side just makes more sense. The nurturing of a child can affect the mental state and also prevent illnesses that are supposedly genetics. There is a lot of scientific proof behind the facts of nurture, with many experiments and theories conducted to prove this is true. Also, the impact of the environment is what helps to mold the child. Nurturing a child, teaching it proper morals and values is always going to outweigh a child who is born with a bad instinct. They must be taught how they should act, live life, and have experiences to become who they are supposed to be, regardless of genetics. Now that I've taught you about the side of nurture versus nature, I hope you agree and come to see my point.